3 months after Michael died, the world had settled back into something that looked almost normal. That was the strange part about grief. The hospital rooms disappeared. The constant phone calls stopped. The smell of antiseptic and late-night coffee faded into memory. Life didn't explode, it simply resumed. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller introduced himself as Michael's lawyer. His voice had that careful professionalism people use when they're stepping around something delicate. He said Michael had left an item for me, a pen drive. That alone didn't sound unusual. Michael had always been organized. The kind of person who left labeled folders for everything. But then the lawyer hesitated. "Your brother left strict instructions," he said. "He wanted you to watch the contents alone, and he was very clear about something else." I waited. "You are not to tell your wife Emily." The words sat there between us, heavy and strange. I almost laughed. It sounded like something from a bad thriller. Michael had loved Emily. She'd visited him in the hospital dozens of times. She brought him soup when chemo made him too sick to eat anything else. Why would he say something like that? Still, a promise to a dying brother carries a certain gravity. I picked up the pen drive 2 days later. For almost a week I didn't open it. It sat on my desk beside my laptop, a small, ordinary object that somehow made the room feel uncomfortable. I told myself Michael had probably recorded a goodbye message. Something emotional he hadn't wanted to say in front of everyone. The instruction about Emily kept bothering me though. Keeping secrets from your spouse isn't a small thing. At least, it hadn't been in our marriage. But eventually curiosity won. One evening Emily left to meet a friend for dinner. The house grew quiet in that hollow way it does when someone who usually fills the space isn't there. I plugged the pen drive in. There was only one file. The video opened to Michael sitting in a hospital room. Not the bright daytime version I remembered from visits, but late at night. The lights were dim. Machines hummed quietly behind him. He looked thinner than I remembered. He stared at the camera for a few seconds before speaking. "Hey, James." His voice was calm. Not dramatic. Just tired. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it out." I leaned closer to the screen. "I need to say something that might feel uncomfortable," he continued. "And I want you to understand something first. I could be wrong." That line caught my attention. Michael had never been the kind of person to open with uncertainty. He explained that during the final months of his illness, people visited him alone sometimes. Nurses, friends, family. Emily had visited a lot. At first, he said their conversations were normal. She'd ask how he was feeling, talk about work, bring updates about me. But gradually she started asking questions that felt different. Not obvious ones, subtle ones. About my job benefits, about insurance policies tied to the company, about whether I had updated certain paperwork after a promotion. Michael said he assumed she was just trying to help me stay organized. I had always been terrible with documents. Then one day she asked him something that stuck in his mind. She wanted to know if I had updated the beneficiary on my life insurance policy. Michael paused in the video then, rubbing his hands together slowly. "She said she was helping you stay on top of things," he continued. But something about the way she asked felt off. He didn't accuse her of anything. He didn't say she was planning something. He simply said that once that conversation happened, he began noticing things more carefully. Little moments. Emily asking whether I had power of attorney documents in place. Emily wondering aloud if I had ever reviewed my retirement accounts recently. Each question sounded reasonable on its own, but together they created a pattern that made him uneasy. Michael leaned closer to the camera. "I might be completely wrong about this," he said again. "People get curious about finances when someone they love is sick. It's normal." Then he shook his head slowly. "But, if I'm not wrong, I don't want you walking through life blind." He told me not to confront Emily. Not to accuse anyone, just to check things quietly. Review the documents. Look at the accounts. Make sure nothing had changed without my understanding. That's it, he said. If everything is fine, then you'll know I was just a paranoid guy stuck in a hospital bed. He smiled faintly. But if something isn't right, you'll see it before it's too late. The video ended. For a few minutes I just sat there. Part of me wanted to dismiss it immediately. Michael had been sick. Chemo messes with people's thinking. Maybe he'd misinterpreted innocent conversations. Emily had supported me through the worst months of my life. The idea that she could be manipulating anything felt absurd. So I did nothing. Days passed. Life went on exactly as before. Emily made dinner. We talked about work. She asked how I was holding up after losing Michael. Normal conversations. But Michael's voice stayed in the back of my mind. Eventually I decided to check. Not because I believed him. Because it would take 20 minutes to prove him wrong. I logged into my insurance account first. Everything looked normal at a glance. Coverage amount, policy details, premium payments. Then I clicked the beneficiary tab. There had been an update 6 weeks earlier. My name appeared on the digital signature line, but I didn't remember signing anything. At first I assumed I had simply forgotten. I signed dozens of documents every year for work. Still, the date bothered me. 6 weeks earlier, I had been traveling constantly. I requested the full submission record from the insurance company. They sent the file the next morning. The form had been uploaded through my account portal. The signature matched mine digitally. And suddenly I remembered something. One evening after I got back from a work trip, Emily had asked me to sign a few documents quickly, something about updating household paperwork. I hadn't looked closely. I trusted her. That realization didn't come with anger, just a quiet shift inside my chest. I didn't confront her. Instead, I contacted a financial advisor Michael's lawyer recommended. Over the next 2 weeks, I reviewed everything carefully. Beneficiaries were corrected. Access permissions were restricted. Documents were updated with new authentication requirements. Nothing dramatic happened at home. Emily never mentioned the policy again. Then one afternoon she received a phone call while we were both in the kitchen. She assumed I was distracted by my laptop. Her voice changed. Low, tense. I thought that was already handled, she said quietly. There was a pause. No, he shouldn't have looked yet. Another pause. Then she noticed me watching. She ended the call quickly. A few minutes later she asked, casually, "Did you ever finalize that insurance update we talked about a while ago?" I closed my laptop. "I reviewed everything recently," I said. "There were a few errors. I fixed them." For a moment she didn't speak. Nothing exploded. No accusations, no shouting, just silence. Something invisible shifted in the room. Our marriage didn't end that day. But the easy certainty I once had about the people closest to me never returned in the same way. 3 months later I returned the pen drive to Michael's lawyer. I never told Emily about it. Not because I wanted revenge. Because the knowledge had already done its work. Michael didn't give me proof of anything. He simply gave me a reason to look closer. And that was enough to save my life.